Well, I am now known as the bathroom man because I've spent the last 15 years in this industry. But otherwise, I'm a civil engineer.
Oh,
I've also done my management program with, of course, marketing as a major with Troy Calcutta, and started off actually in a completely different sector, but still closely related to building and construction as such. So, experiences through a company called Eternit Everest, which is part of the ETEX group at that time. It's a Belgian company with a new vertical that they started, which was for prefabricated boards. So these are non-asbestos based boards, which are largely into the false ceiling paneling kind of applications. So it was a job based out of Delhi as early as 1997 or so, immediately after my civil engineering. And I would say perfect platform because this is a fresh guy out of out of engineering, and then on a scooter traveling through the streets of Dwarka, which was coming up at that time in Delhi, trying to find an application that works for these new products that this so-called Belgian company has launched. So I think those are perfect platforms because they get you in touch with reality. They get you in touch with how the industry works in terms of every stakeholder down to even getting project leads from a site which has a board of an architect. So I always value these kind of starts, and then gets you a little bit closer to every facet of an overall journey of, let's say, a project win. But around 3.5 years with them, largely around this, I got the opportunity then to work with the GE in their GE Advanced Materials group, and I think that was a different level of exposure. Largely dealing with polycarbonate sheets. It's basically a polymer-based group, but they have two functions. One is a structured product division, which is largely end applications of the polymers like sheets, and the other is core polymers itself. So a different scale. GE as a group was almost 700 crores at that point of time, and their core application of polymers was something that involved a very different kind of marketing. More about industrial marketing. So I've had some experiences with that. A lot of work with OEMs, which is again a very different kind of marketing or a different kind
very different.
related to an architect or compared to something like that. So I think primed me up a bit for one working across industries, because especially with polymers, our customers were from an automotive perspective, from wiring devices, from CD manufacturers, just about anything you can think of, because plastic is pretty much used everywhere. And also from the fact that, the scale and the level of negotiations could be completely different. I mean, industrial marketing perspective, when you have an application that gives you 100 ton sales a month, you sometimes fight over 50 paisa per kg. So that's the negotiation that you have to do. And in certain other building and construction applications, you can give away 500 rupees right at that moment itself, maybe a meter.
Yeah, volume based thing.
Exactly. So completely different perspectives of scale, closeness to commercials, as well as, let's say, the demand side of things. But then, as things would have it, I entered the bathroom industry with a very big step, because, a movement from GE, which is well established, I would say even now, but even more so at that time in terms of a global player, very structured, processes being settled, to a startup called Kohler. This is in 2005. I was actually the third employee in Kohler. And yeah, and actually got the chance to start the Western region for them. We walked into a city and took a small place and started with a telephone and stuff like that. So experience again of setting up in some way almost an operations. I mean, being part of the early team. And so worked for, I had 3 roles that I did in Kohler. I started off in the Western region. At some point of time, they decided to have a hospitality focused sales effort and a sales team and a division. So I headed that division next. And after that, I headed the entire project sales. So almost from 2005 to 2012, I've been working with them on 3 stints. That also gave me a chance to move from Bombay back to Gurgaon, which is where they were headquartered, for the last 2 roles, which were on a national level. Then moved to Delta. Again, that's where the bathroom industry continues. And Delta was again a startup in India. A lot of learning, because I think everybody's well aware of the kind of investments that Kohler did into the market. And that's not necessarily the way every brand, let's say, enters this industry. So I think a lot of learning from Kohler in terms of how to leverage investments, but then a lot of learning from Delta in terms of how to optimize investments as well on both sides. So I think every stint teaches you a lot, and I'm thankful for the time spent over there. As you would know, Delta and Hansgrohe are part of the same group. which is the in Delta, I was heading sales largely, but in Masco, in Hansgrohe, I got the opportunity to head the business. So started off with the India and the SAARC country business. And yes, in the last few months, I'm thankful to actually be able to head key accounts, which is again large project accounts across Asia. So this includes China. It's a huge responsibility, which has recently come on board, but let's see. So far, so good.
Yeah, and that too hospitality during the pandemic.
Exactly. So interesting times. I was just coming to that. But I think, the current situation is one part of it. The kind of learning that comes across new territories, across new cultures is a beautiful part of it as well.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Balance both the things. And yeah, it's been a great journey so far. Right. I was actually born and brought up in Bombay. I've done my schooling in junior college from Bombay. So I had moved back to North, which is actually where my roots are from. But I got a chance to come back to Bombay with Kohler, start this region. But
then again, you were back to Gurgaon.
Because their head office was based out of Gurgaon, and the roles were obviously, done out of their head office. So this is why I had to shift back to Gurgaon when I took up the hospitality sales role for the country. Yeah.
So it has been,
Yes, with Hansgrohe, I'm back to Pune actually.
Yes.
Lovely city, enjoying it. But yes, I've been shuttling around a little bit between the west and the north. I mean, I think, first of all, obviously, I really enjoying my time in Hansgrohe. And the reason I say that is, any experience in a job is on the basis of culture. And then, of course, you are able to leverage a good culture in the market by way of, the strength of the product and the brand. And of course, it's the people that leverage all of that. So for me, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's a German company, which is part of a larger American setup, which is Masco. But I think there's a lot to learn from both approaches. So especially because I had largely worked with American companies over the last few years, and I think I love the aggression that the Americans show on the marketing side. They generally go all in.
They are known in the world for that.
That's true. So I think they have a lot of strengths on that. But then I also love the steady and very, very detailed approach that typically Europeans, and even within that, Germans
especially.
There are pluses that you can take from every approach, and the kind of detailing, the kind of longer term vision that they have, the kind of patience that they are willing to show, and sometimes the kind of inflexibility as well. But I think that's part of the job.
That's part of the thing, because when someone is not ready to compromise, then patience comes. Along with that, the stubbornness not to budge for any reason, that also becomes a part of it. So
True,
I think it's a package.
Absolutely. I think if the conviction has been built over a detailed, genuine study, then I think that conviction should anyway hold. So I think that's what they are known for, and I love that part about it. Managements always gain trust over time, and then I believe flexibility is also shown. So I think I'm blessed that, over a short period of time, 3 years or so, our team over here has delivered fairly strongly. We've doubled the revenues of Hansgrohe India in 3 years. And based on that, I think the entire organization is willing to hear us out a bit more, and I'm sure even support us in terms of our task. It's been a pleasure on that. I think, to be honest, within the industry, we probably are one of the only brands that is still growing from last year in the lockdown. So just last month, we're almost +9 over last year. I think that's a phenomenal effort. But I think it's not about one company or anything. I think the lockdown has definitely hit the industry. And I think I speak for that first. That it's given everyone, whether you're growing at a certain rate or even growing at a certain rate, it's given everyone a chance to look back, evaluate your business, evaluate your processes. On a very broad perspective, I would say the first thing that everyone has done is to look at improving efficiencies. When it comes to your route to market, when it comes to your supply chain, when it comes to efficiencies in different processes, I think everybody has reworked or at least re-evaluated their business model. We did the same. I think in a market which is growing at a very steady rate, you tend to accumulate certain inefficiencies and even certain costs that, under the layer of fat. I would like to call it that, because the market growth is that layer of fat for me. But when it comes to a challenging environment, you go down and you go in detail and you scrutinize just about every opportunity that you have been working on. So I think that has helped us. Despite our growth, I think it has further given us a chance to look back and see, whichever places we could improve our operations in general. And like everyone else, we've done that. That's on a very broad level. But on a smaller level, I think finding new avenues of growth, clearly implementing the digital medium across so many operations in the company. I mean, I think there's a beautiful joke that's going around everywhere that most of the IT transformations that have happened of companies have happened not because of the CTO, but
because of COVID.
And I agree completely. I mean, just the fact that we are discussing right now on the platform, I think that's one of the aspects. And also on the product side. So, like so many other countries, and as you also mentioned, that contactless platforms are becoming something that is the immediate need, largely for places which have more customer interface, so hospitality, public areas, we have sensor faucets that are coming. But I'd still like to add one point, and I think it's a good platform or a good opportunity. We jump the gun when we expect products to give you all the solutions. The first stage is human behavior and our own, basic sense of hygiene. So I think it's very important that, the product is only meant to complement or facilitate a higher level of hygiene, but this is actually the human behavior. So I think just the industry that we are in, which is the industry of delivering experiences by water, is also a big part of hygiene. So I'm glad that, at least I represent an industry that, would play a role in improving a basic civic sense of hygiene. And I hope that products continue to leverage that by, of course, at this moment, minimizing human interface in terms of touch. So we are working on that as well. Most of our products on a sustainability angle were always there. I mean, we always had low flow shower heads available. Our products are green or are able to deliver flow rates which are classified as green. That's something that, as a brand, we always had. So we highlight it maybe a bit more at this time, but to be honest, those things are product developments that don't happen overnight. It comes from culture itself. So it's something that has been around and known for Hansgrohe in the past as well. So yeah, so that's how we are looking. Sure. I think it would be very, very fair to say that there has been a strong impact in terms of minimizing demand. And if you study it a little bit more, there are various segments of demand that were available in the market. On a very broad level, you generally classify it between retail and projects. I mean, that's how. And then if you go a bit deeper, maybe one segment initially, which is the project side, it's a demand that comes from a lot of new build. Over the last 10, 15 years that I have seen this industry, new build was a very big part of demand generation on the institutional side of the business. But I think it's fair to say that, at least in this year, the number of new launches or the number of actual construction has reduced significantly. In fact, I was going through some data which showed, in the last quarter, the number of new launches is down minus 80. So that's a very, very significant number. And we all know that, a lot of construction sites are impacted, timelines have changed substantially. So clearly, there has been a very strong impact on the project side of the business. On the trade side, I would say impact is a bit different. In general, it's obviously still to a large extent discretionary spend when you talk about, let's say, the kind of price points that we play in. I mean, it still comes under a slightly more discretionary spend than just buying a showering solution or anything like that. But over the last few years, we've recognized that, there are a lot of pockets of demand that are coming out from places that we are not present in. For example, outside of the metros or relatively smaller cities, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities. So we grew our distribution footprint to a lot of new cities in the last couple of years. And I think it's been one of the single biggest reasons of being able to still have a decent sized demand that still fuels growth for us. So while we are very, very conscious that our existing partners also grow, but from a company scale perspective, there are so many white spots out there in the market in terms of demand centers that we were not present in. So we've been working on that. We've been trying to improve our distribution footprint, our retail footprint in the market, evaluate new opportunities. So also, as you know, I mean, Hansgrohe is generally known to be a luxury play. I think while we are very clear that, our product innovations will always portray the brand as a pure luxury play, we've a lot of webinars with architects to understand if they are looking at us to provide solutions on a slightly lower price positioning to enable us to have more visibility, and sometimes even to enable clients who have used Hansgrohe in master bathrooms but still are a bit, let's just say, conscious of using Hansgrohe across their house. So Those are thoughts that are there on the table. Some solutions are also coming up on that line. But it's clear that we will be focused on the premium segment, largely still in the market. Yeah, it's an interesting point. It reminds me of a webinar that we did with an architect in Coimbatore. What I came to know from that webinar is that there was a huge demand of farmhouses at that time. So maybe even renovation of that, because I think at that time people were confined to their homes, and it was very important for them. Maybe they even got a chance to analyze if their shower is working properly or not, or so many other things.
So the thing that happened was we did recently also last month, last month end, okay, we did a survey of 4-5 cities with architects and all that, okay. So their thing was that, see, a lot of demand kept coming and we could not even close our office. Okay, some of the architects said that, and they were saying that the reason was that the families were together, and when families are together and they know that, okay, this much time is there, and they have 2-3 houses and all that, one farmhouse and all that, they think, okay, let's renovate this one, let's go and stay there now, okay, and let's prepare for that. So those were the reasons, and then they, when their families started staying together for long, then all those things which were missing, crept up. And they thought of, okay, let us do things right now. So maybe those were the reason. And strangely enough, some of the places had these kind of things, and some of the places were not. Some of the places were not. They were not in this kind of a demand or something. They were waiting and watching and all that. But some places in India really shoot up like anything.
Sure,
so
I think it could also be that. It could be linked to, for example, in Bombay, you really don't have opportunities of doing farmhouses around. So I think places like Coimbatore, even Delhi, we had certain segments that we saw this were renovating a lot of their, let's say, second house, not necessarily a farmhouse, but a second house.
Second house, right.
I also feel it was the availability of labor that would have impacted certain locations, because sometimes the demand side was there, but the ability to execute the actual construction was not. So in cities where labor was relatively easier to obtain, I am pretty sure that the execution side would not have been as hampered, and would be maybe in certain other cities where demand may be there, but the ability to execute itself was not there on account of not having labor. So
yes, you're right.
Yeah, that could have played a small role.
And there are some people like what they did, like they said, okay, you bring in your, workers and everyone and stay there for 1-2 months, 3 months and all that. Just let their families also come. It's okay. Have to come and just be there. Be logged. Complete my second home.
Yeah, absolutely. I think read somewhere that a certain developer flew in some labor on a flight to complete some.
News. Yes, not one, but I think 2 or 3. One was from Hyderabad.
Yes, that's right. So the Hyderabad one is what I remember. But yes, I have some acquaintances in the industry that do talk about this, and I'm sure it happened in a lot more places. And I think on one side it's good that people rent after execution. The other side, I always feel consistency should be shown over a longer period of time. So suddenly the importance of labor has shot up, and I hope that site conditions, I hope that the general industry behavior towards the working labor class improved after this pandemic. I think I understand your question, but I think the answer lies in the definition of luxury itself. For me, luxury is also about being unique. I do not think the luxury segment ever has any one directional trend. I think the luxury customer by itself wants to differentiate with the second person, wants to be unique. I also feel that luxury in India will continue to be a little exclusive. So which means that I don't think the general aspect is that in the most immediate short term, you will have some functionality come even on the luxury side. And obviously you will have some consciousness of spend come even on the luxury side. Okay. But that's the only place where I'm pretty much certain of that V-shaped recovery that we all talk about. Because a luxury customer very, very quickly will continue to base the decisions based on the uniqueness, on the differentiation, on the innovation of the product. And I think that trend will not change. Clearly, it's the companies that are able to deliver those experiences and at the same time, not just gimmicks that will kind of continue to be leaders in that sector. So the one change, however, is the amount of knowledge that is being able to translate it to make something remain unique or desirable or exquisite. Because earlier it was just maybe just a small reading in an article or a visual or a personal experience. It's no longer that way. People tend to understand luxury a bit more than just get influenced by certain experiences. So I think that is a conscious change that is coming. And we love it because that's when you differentiate gimmicks with actual strength of products and actual differentiation. So I think that's coming. Also, I think the experimentation side will continue, in fact, in luxury. I mean, look at finishes. Suddenly you have finishes in just about everything that we see as far as interiors are concerned. Look at your lovely background. So it's not the same standard walls that we were used to. So I think people will always want to express
uniqueness.
Elements, their own elements on their own uniqueness by way of as an extension into the products, and it's even more so an ability at the luxury end to be able to do that. So I think that will continue. I don't expect that to change.
Right.
Sure. I think first is the communication side. I think everything has changed to online. I mean, even within the company within, let's say, the head office, you could have a conference that is happening between two people who are not sitting in front of each other, but maybe are even prevalent in the office in that sense. So first is the communication side. I think that is where we've been completely, obviously, moved over to the online version or the digital format. In terms of the communication externally also, there was a time when a customer would not be happy with a product being presented over a Zoom call or any kind of a call. I mean, unless there was a touch and feel, that decision would, or even that phase would not move ahead to the next phase. So that has also started. I'm really happy to have some cases where you have our salesperson in a showroom, or even at some case with a sample at his home, actually talking about the product, talking about the brand to a customer who's sitting in his or her house, and even to some extent looking at how the product fits into a design which is being done by an architect, which is again in a third location. So I think the integration of the product being pitched online has also started happening well. Obviously, we've got a lot of webinars going on with architects to make them continue to feel engaged with the brand, and of course to learn from them as well. On the supply chain side, on the sales channel, I think it would be fair to say that our industry is not being one of the, let's just say, the top movers or the top shakers on the online channel. The level of volumes on the physical format or the hard format have been always substantially more. So I think that point remains, but I think the current situation again gives us a chance to start evaluating how we can change that as well. But supply chain models don't change overnight, and to be honest, not even, for example, in 6 months or 3 months. Longer implications and longer plans that are being discussed, more from a supply chain format perspective, but not necessarily on an online platform so quickly. So the more immediate changes on the online side would be on the communication and the ability to get product, specifications, product detailing, things related to purchase on the online side. Yeah.
So the acceptance by consumers or architects to really check out things online, that is a really big change, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think
that adds to a lot of time saving.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And resource saving.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And that definitely is in. Yeah, resource efficiency has increased very much, and it has been, like a joke, it has also been shared in the industry that there are lots of people who have never worked, and those people are also working during the lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Everybody is working, everybody is looking back and trying to understand that, okay, we need to be efficient, we need to refresh, reset button needs to be, so that we can really, in the next phase of working, we should be really helpful for the industry.
True, and I think to one extent, there's been a lot of learning on how to motivate people without really being in front of them. So I think that's a organizational, cultural side also that is developing. I think a lot of companies, thrive on group meetings and group conferences in terms of just getting the organization a bit more engaged. But now you have, let's say, 6 months since we had our last group meeting, but we still want the organization to be as engaged. So I think that is a learning also, and a continuous development that is happening in the organization. And of course, all of us are learning in that. But it's a beautiful new challenge. Kind of helps you evolve as a person as well. Okay, so I was going to talk about the Rainfinity platform. I think this is a platform where we got some data, and we've exceeded expectations substantially in India, and I think there are concrete reasons why. Generally, as a country, showering as an experience is thoroughly enjoyed in India, even though it may be relatively short versus the time that, let's say, certain people in other countries or consumers in other countries spend. But generally, one loves to experience a good shower. And Rainfinity as a platform is largely a showering solution, both overhead as well as hand showers. But the most beautiful part about this platform is that it touches just about every experience point. So from a visual perspective, we have an amazing array of a matte white and a matte black finish, which is something that's not, let's just say, as prevalent in the market right now. It's a beautiful design, a very new design in the market, especially the overhead shower. I mean, we've had people wonder if it's a product at the saloon where you put your head under, because it's got that kind of a shape. So it's just a very intoxicating kind of a design. From a spray perspective, and this is what I meant. So you have the visual aspect being looked at, you have the design aspect being looked at,
and the experience.
Right, now the functionality. So the spray is a soft spray, and you have to experience it to really, really be able to understand what I'm saying. But what we do is that you have the number of nozzles are increased substantially. So you have a finer spray, and at the same time, you have a softer spray. So even if you actually put the water on the ground, the noise of the splash or the noise of the impact of water is different from the noise that you get from, let's say, an average shower. So you can also imagine how that would feel when it splashes on your body. So it's a very invigorating spray. You have spray modes that you can change even with that if you want a kind of a more focused spray in that. So all the functionalities in terms of the uniqueness of spray modes have been added, but we have a different spray in it. You have different finishes that you can do. And you have lovely designs both on the overhead shower and the hand shower. And the last part, which I think, to be fair, is always important, it's nowhere at the kind of price positions that some of the earlier, let's say, more extravagant launches of Hansgrohe have been on the pricing side. So it's a relatively far more affordable product line, which I think is why it has been one of the best-selling products, platform in this year. We've been amazed with the kind of response we've got. And so I know you talked about two, but personally, I feel that this particular line, which has a lot of hand showers, overhead showers, size configurations, is the line that I would love to be able to showcase to most architects and designers, to as many, of course, and to end consumers. And this is the kind of product where an end consumer also walks in, and at times may even want to tell a designer to kind of evaluate. Typically, you would have luxury customers going the other way around, where the designer kind of gently proposes a lot of new products. But here it's the consumer that is so close to the product as well. So I think that's been very refreshing. So I think that platform is something that we would focus on. It's visible in almost all of our stores. We have more than 70 stores now. Yeah, I think that's been one of the things that we've changed in the last few years. I think we have fantastic relationships that have been with us for a long period of time, but at the same time, brand was visible in very few cities. So in 2017, for example, we were in just 23 cities across the country. And today we are in 58 cities across the country, and we have more than 70.
I think you joined in 2017, right?
2017 was when I joined. Yeah, that's true. I mean, the idea was that, it was a different way where we were going to the market, and we have a different, slightly more aggressive way right now. We now have more than presence in more than 58 cities. Also in line with what you mentioned earlier, that a lot of new growth points have come up outside of the metros. So we've now expanded our base, and as I said, almost 78 partners, 78 experience centers. Because even though a company doesn't have its own experience centers, I think the way we do our showrooms is so beautiful that each showroom can be an experience center by itself. Of course, a lot of credit to our partners that invest in Hansgrohe in that way. And so we are now present in a lot of locations. Of course, most of the bigger cities are already covered, and now actually all across the country.
Is that true?
Not at all. Not at all, actually. To be honest, I think North, we have a lot of visibility in North. Just to name a few places, I think Delhi NCR, we have more than 7 stores. We have Ludhiana, we have, I mean, all the big cities. Jaipur.
So for the last 1 year, it has happened?
Probably, yes. The extent of, let's say, visibility would have increased drastically in the last 2 years or so. But so some of our earlier representations might be a bit more towards the west and the south. But yes, I think in the last couple of years, north and east as well have caught up a bit. So yeah, right now I think it's fairly visible across the country. The name itself says it all. So then experience center is largely for the consumer to experience the product. And when I say that, it has to be able to give the company the capability to showcase their range for the consumer to exhibit. So we would be fairly happy if we are able to make each store our experience center by one, having enough display. You'll be fairly surprised at the average display size of our partners' exhibits. In Hansgrohe, it is more than 600 square feet. Right. So I think that's the point, that every location, every point of sale, every touch point for a consumer, as long as that has the ability to showcase our product strength and width, of course, and the fact that the consumer doesn't walk away disappointed by not experiencing
not able to experience,
not able to or feel that something is lacking. I think that is the ultimate aim. And I completely agree that when you have your own experience center, it's always easier to do that. But looking at how the country has moved, looking at the locations that are now more and more focused on premium products, I think our bigger task will always be that every store of ours is looked at as an experience center. So that's how we go it. There are significant investments by the partners as well as the company on each location, and we hope that we would be able to make a consumer feel that every store is an experience center. I mean, it is a multi-brand environment. Let's be very honest about that. So that's the other thing that varies between, let's say, a company experience center. But I think from a consumer perspective, as long as he or she gets that kind of experience, that should be fairly good. So that's how we are looking at things. And if things change, of course, we'll be happy to let you know. First of all, is obviously a big thank you for always having the faith in this product and the brand. I think, to be honest, fundamental things about the brand and product don't and should not change just because there has been an event or something. I think the positives will always be events encouraging companies to think more. So our fundamental message of innovation in our products is always going to be key. Of course, our German heritage and product quality is also something that we obviously take a lot of pride in. At the same time, I think to be fair, I think our engagement with the designer community has been something that we've always wanted to increase, and it's been a function of our organization's scale, our organization's visibility, our presence in the market, and we are working hard on it. So we would love that, for example, through your medium as well, to be able to engage much more as a company, as a brand, with the design fraternity and learn a lot from them. As well. Big thanks from my side, and I hope that they experience this from our side as well. Well, they are one of the pillars that the brand has been with, in all these years, and one thing that I love about the Hansgrohe channel partner family is the involvement of the partners in the success of the brand. So obviously, every channel partner is always looking at business success, and there will never be a success unless you are passionate about it. But it's a bit different for us in Hansgrohe. I think the extent of relationship is a little different than just core business. I think people know each other better, people spend time with each other a bit better. And more importantly, there is a lot more transparency and there's a lot more surety about how business works at both ends. So that's been a huge strength for us, and I hope that spirit of being a team, being growing together always remains. And because I understand that when you have a smaller channel base, then it's a bit easier. As the channel base increases, obviously those challenges come up.
Challenges increase.
Right. But fundamentally, we don't want that inherent culture or that spirit. So I'm very thankful and very blessed that we have that from the channel partners side, and I hope that we can, as a company, keep that on. Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, thank you for giving me the platform. I think you guys work well. I know that, we honestly have not engaged as much, but I think we've always recognized what you're doing in the market side of things, and, using these platforms, getting us closer to our customers, and of course, getting their messages across to us. So thank you for that. And I'm sure that, your work inspires so many people. And I'm sure that we as a company also will continue to engage better with you going ahead.
So in this time of, this kind of time when people are re-strategizing things and all that, we feel that our role has actually increased a lot, right? Being a bridge between them, the market and the brands is very, very crucial. What's happening, what's not, and all that. So whatever is happening, let us know, keep us updated so that we can be your mouthpiece and we can share that to the market well, right? So with this, we're ending this session. Thank you so much for being there with me. It was a pleasure for me, and I'm looking forward that we keep meeting you like this and share new ideas and new things that you come up with.
Thank you. I love the engagement, and I think you're absolutely right. The more engaged we are in this period, the better it is for everybody, both from a learning and also from a just the ability to inspire your own self, to be honest. So I think it's great. Thank you for the opportunity, and I look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.